Alrighty, what's going on, guys? Running Shoe Kings back here with a race breakdown from the Butler road race, 5 mile this past Saturday. So this is kind of my local race, hometown race in Butler, Pennsylvania. It's the first time I've run it since 2019, but I'm a whole lot fitter than I was back then, so I was going into it really optimistic as to what I was going to be able to do, but let's get into things here. Alright, so off the bat here, I was looking at the entries the previous night, and we had some last minute additions. So here on the right is CJ Singleton, Division I steeplechaser at Notre Dame, just got second team All-American at the NCAA Championships, so that was a bit of a surprise. And there was another addition, another Division I runner that we'll kind of see here off the start, but wasn't exactly prepared for that going into it. So gun goes off here, and first mile is pretty far downhill for that, at least for first half mile, but you end up losing about 80 feet of elevation throughout that first mile. You can kind of see off to the right side there, there was one person in a black tank top and then a woman as well, kind of following along with that guy. Come to find out, that woman in the gray tank top is a Division I runner out of University of Texas. So again, last minute entry, throw in a couple Division I runners, but really just this first half mile here, I wanted to make sure I was getting out strong and use the downhill. I knew that I'm going to have to come back up this in the end since it is an out and back, but I wanted to kind of stretch the legs out, get things rolling, and get off to a strong start. And as you can see here already, we have CJ kind of moving around, and from talking to him after the race, this was actually his first week back into training, so what better way to get training started back up than with a 5-mile road race. But you can kind of see a bit of a pack forming here as CJ kind of moves up there into second. The girl off to the left side kind of comes back into the pack that I'm in, and we kind of work that group into the first mile. So as I said, this is an out and back course here, so we make that first turn and we're coming down. This is Penn Avenue, and you'll see some barricades set up coming up here. This is actually where the 2-kilometer race turnaround is, right around the YMCA, which is the organization that puts this race on. But I kind of found myself at this point, okay, I'm sitting in third place. CJ's obviously doing his thing. I'm probably not going to have a chance at him, but I'm looking ahead, still thinking that the woman that's out front at this point might come back, but you'll kind of see what happens as we progress further into the race. Coming up here on the first water station, I did grab a bottle, and luckily with this race they had bottles. I tend to struggle with the cups, so all I did, dump a little bit on top of me, like each shoulder, get some on my head as well, just trying to stay cool because it was a pretty humid morning, and most of my runs have been in the afternoon where there's significantly less humidity. Alright, and then we have the gold St. Vincent jersey that came up along my right side here, and at this point I'm kind of looking down at my watch, realizing, you know, we're going out pretty quick this first mile, so maybe best to just kind of tuck in with this guy and get a good draft going on what kind of turns into a bit of a climb as you go into Alameda Park after the first mile. So I'm just kind of sitting right behind him, making sure that I have some space, he has some space, and keep on rolling on down the road. But of course, you can't just continue rolling down the road. I ended up moving around him back into third place here now. And at this point, I was kind of listening, trying to see how many footsteps were behind me, get an idea as far as how large of a pack we had, because I could hear multiple footsteps, including that gold jersey that I just kind of gone around here. As speed up a little bit here, we come up on the first mile in 5:25, which definitely quick. I was hoping to come through 5:35 kind of would have been the fastest I wanted to do. I was more looking for 5:40 to 5:50 pacing throughout the race, but whenever you kind of get dragged out faster than you want to, it just have to adapt with the race and put yourself in position so that you don't have too much ground to make up, especially on a course like this. Alright, so after you come through that first mile, I had another gentleman who I actually got a chance to talk to at the end of the race. Name was Brad. So him and I kind of stayed side by side for a majority of the race, honestly, just kind of throwing little jabs here and there as we were going through. This is the lower part of Alameda Park, and throwing a little surge here, he throwing a little surge, just trying to test each other a little bit. At least that's what I thought we were doing, but he might have been just kind of sitting on me at that point. So, and as we kind of pass through that open gate area, this is where Alameda Park actually officially starts. So this stretch is heavily under tree branches and tree covers, so it kind of traps the humidity in there. I looked down on my watch a couple times throughout this area. Now, yes, trees tend to kind of mess with GPS systems on watches, but whenever I was looking down and I was seeing 550s, it kind of caught me by surprise, because I knew that we had slowed down from the initial downhill start, because the first mile with the descent around 80 feet, second mile makes all of that 80 feet up and plus some, so actually the turnaround is the highest point of the course. But at that point, I was barely able to see the woman ahead a second, and CJ was at that point ahead of her as well. So I knew the battle was going to come down to where I was at now, and wanted to give myself the best opportunity to make a good run at what would have been the third overall in the end. So throughout much of the section in the lower part of Alameda, I was trying to find little things, whether that be a slippery patch or ducking under a tree branch, that just might mess with the rhythm of the people who were in the pack. But at this point, I think it was mostly just Brad and I. It's those little things that you might be able to kind of break their rhythm, kind of mess with their head a little bit. So whenever I would throw in a little surge, but I would try and make a move at that point to see whether I could get some breathing room. But every time that I did, Brad matched it. Alright, and you'll see here, so because this is an out and back course, we have the top two come through, CJ in first, and the top woman, I believe her name was Ava, but we round the flagpole here, and I did kind of check my watch to make sure that I knew about the distance that I was looking to be behind second place should there be a little bit of a blow up. Spoiler alert, there was none. But nice part that you see with some of these local races here is actually I didn't get a water bottle at the turnaround, so Brad shared his with me. I got a quick swig of water, dumped a little bit on me as well, passed it back to him. It's those sorts of things that you're able to do in these races that, yes, you want to be competitive, you want to beat the person next to you, but you also want to challenge them too and be able to push each other to get the best out of one another. Alright, so as we are heading back down out of Alameda here, again, Brad and I are still pretty much staying side by side throughout this stretch as well. At this point, I had kind of stopped throwing in any surges here. I was just trying to stay relaxed, stay comfortable. I was kind of noticing my heart rate had gotten pretty high up there, knowing that I still had a climb section at the end of the race that we had gone down in the opening mile. Alright, so it was actually right about here at the 4-mile point that Brad kind of made a little bit of a move and started to put some space between him and I. And talking to him after the race, he actually had not even looked at his watch at all up until that point. So that was kind of his signal that it was time to make his move and try and pull away a little bit. And he managed to put around 15 to 20 meters on me at the most, but it wasn't as if it was a super drastic move that I wasn't able to somewhat match, or at least stay close enough to, so that if I was able to get that next gear towards the end, or if he were to falter a little bit, I wouldn't be able to make that move. As we got out of Alameda Park here, we came up on a father and son duo that were handing out ice cold water bottles, which so refreshing because most of the actual water stations on the course had kind of lukewarm water, so that cold water felt really good. Now I made the mistake here of trying to open the water bottle, which you need to open it to be able to get the water out, but my hands just weren't cooperating, so I ended up having to stop for a second or so to get the lid off, throw it into the garbage can, and then ended up carrying said water bottle for half a mile to 3/4 of a mile or so. So I just kind of like squeezed it in my hand and carried it along with me. So that kind of put a little bit more space between Brad and I, but again, I can still see him. It's not as if I'm completely faltering at this point or if I'm blowing up. So just trying to stay close enough that if something happens, I'm able to capitalize. Alright, and then came up on the final aid station of the course here, so I was finally able to discard that water bottle and keep on going. And actually, as we came up on the right hand turn onto Main Street, I was kind of paying attention. Brad almost kept going straight because they had a extra block barricaded off just in case there was any traffic issues. They made sure that the course was fully blocked off and safe. Brad almost kept going straight, so I yelled up to him that we were hanging that right turn onto Main Street, and I had measured it out before the race, so that was about the half-mile point to go. It was also the point in the race that I realized that I did have one other person come up on me, and at the turnaround I did see somebody. They were in a yellow up and running jersey, so I knew that they were somewhat close, but they were able to kind of make those little steps towards me. I made the mistake with the water bottle trying to get it open, so they were able to make up that bit of ground and close in to make this a bit of a race at the end. Alright, and as you can see here, yellow jersey comes up along my right side here. He's making a really strong move. This is probably with about 1/4 of a mile to go at this point, and I didn't think I had a whole lot left. Guess we got some fireworks tonight. Didn't think I had a whole lot left at this point. I was still running right around that 5:50 pace. It's pretty much where I sat for most of the race. But whenever he made that move around me, it just wasn't enough to break that rubber band. So as you can see here, I come back on the yellow jersey, and really Brad still isn't that far ahead of us. So I get up just onto his hip there, and like I was just talking about with making a move, I make it with some determination, power around him there. I can see the finish line. I'm within 100 meters or so coming underneath of that archway, and really only a couple seconds behind Brad and a couple seconds ahead of 5th place as well. But I was really happy with the race, honestly. I was worried about how the early morning humidity was going to be, since I've done most of my running in that drier air in the afternoon, so I think that might have played a little bit of effect, not to mention that lower part of Alameda tends to be pretty humid to start with. And I'll throw in the clip here at the end that I didn't realize I actually had recorded, but it might be a good laugh for you guys. then just some final thoughts on the race. So I ended up 4th overall at 29:52. In the end, I kind of thought I was a little bit fitter. I kind of found that my legs had a lot more left in it at the end. Like, I was able to make that surge to 4th place, but my aerobic system just didn't seem to be where it needed to be, which is interesting because normally my aerobic system is what lacks behind, or is what is stronger, and my legs is what I have to worry about more. But I guess it's a good thing that I kind of found that out now, since we're still early in the summer racing schedule, and I'll be able to make some adjustments to training to kind of fix that. I was able to learn a lot from this race, which I think is always more important than just going out and kind of taking it easy. You end up winning, you don't really know what you need to work on, or you don't get to test yourself, because that's the point of the race, is whenever you get your workouts in, you get your mileages in, that's kind of building yourself up, and then whenever you get to the race, you want to see what stuff you might need to work on, or what stuff's been working, what might not have been working. So as always, over-analyzing everything is kind of what I do, so we'll make some adjustments and move forward, and we'll actually be racing next Wednesday for the second race of the Summer Twilight Quad Series here. That will be in Sharpsville, so stay tuned for that, but we'll see you later.